Right, okay. As it's 9 o'clock and you guys are all very, very busy, I'm going to go ahead and start, if that's all right. So can everybody hear? Just raise your hand. Can everybody hear us okay? Can everybody see us? Excellent. Okay, well, that's good. We've had a couple of cancellations this morning, obviously, with strikes and schools and everything else. But this is being recorded, so we have the option to be able to sort of send it out to people afterwards. So if you do miss anything, then we will do a recording and it will be sort of sent out afterwards. So while we're just waiting for the last sort of few people to sign in, just a little bit in terms of where you're from, and so the name of the company. And if I could ask you a question then, what would be the current feeling around recruitment? If you had to describe recruitment in your business right now, in terms of a weather forecast, what would be the one word that you would use? So just give you a minute to think about that one, and then we'll just sort of quickly run around and speak to everybody and find out. So if you had to describe recruitment in your business right now in terms of a weather forecast, what would you say? Anyone want to go first?
So, shall I go first?
Yes, that would be lovely.
Weather forecast cloudy with a chance of meatballs. So let's start with that. Recruitment. If I introduce myself, I'm Samir Velayudhan. I work with the Outdoors Group. We are an independent alternative education provider, and our basic ethos is all around forest schools. So from a recruitment perspective, we basically look for individuals who come from a teaching background, which currently, as we currently know about the strikes, they are not a very happy bunch. But this challenge that we face as a private business is, again, based on income and salary levels, which is quite competitive. And the added challenge with the teaching sector is the protocol that we need to follow from an Ofsted perspective. So it's quite detailed with a lot of elements that we have to follow to be basically compliant with Ofsted requirements. So as a forecast, it's always the need to be aware of what our prospective needs are going to be from a recruitment perspective, to be kind of anticipatory, because they seem to be jumping around quite a lot, the teachers. It's trying to understand when do we trigger that recruitment process to try and time that right to get the bums on seat, if that makes sense, in time for when it needs to.
So there's an availability and an access perspective then in terms of timing, or availability and funding. Okay, alrighty, thank you for that. Anybody else like to say what their recruitment forecast might be in terms of the weather? Oh, everybody's gone.
I'll jump in with just ominous, basically.
That's like a usual weather forecast, isn't it, across the UK?
I thought that was the challenge. Is it like rate cloudy, unclear, I suppose?
So a little bit foggy, sort of like halfway along. Anybody else like to add their weather forecast before we carry on?
Go on then, I will. You know, I don't like to shut up for long.
Good morning, John. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me now. I actually managed to unmute. So
were you having a conversation with yourself?
Well, I've got a silly, complicated setup where you have to press a few buttons to actually get the microphone to work, which you know, sometimes backfires on me. Anyway, I'm John Gibbins. I run a company called As It Should Be. Currently, it's just me, and I'm looking to take on my first employee. So I'll brighten the skies a little bit and say it's dawn, and it's a beautiful day, and I'm hoping that it will continue that way.
I like it. I like that. That makes me feel comfortable. Someone's at least positive about it. Okay, so thank you very much for sort of taking the time out of your, like I said, your very busy days today. And also a sort of thank you to the 5 sort of councils within Somerset for allowing us to be able to sort of hold this event through the funding for the Business Resilience Programme. We're very grateful to them for that. So we have about 2 hours today. If we move through quicker and there's other stuff that you want to talk about, then that's absolutely fine. We will stay online for sort of about 20 minutes afterwards. just so that if you've got any sort of burning questions that you want to sort of talk about, then we will be here. But we're going to stick sort of like to finishing roughly around 11 o'clock, so we will know how busy you are. And our aim today is simply for you guys to be able to go away with at least 2 things that you can use immediately sort of within your business in terms of sort of recruitment and retaining talent. So a very quick introduction. Obviously, my name is Karen Watkins. The business is Rowan Consulting. We have, we're about sort of 10 to 12 years.
Oh, look who's swanning in, decided to make an appearance.
Just gonna mute participants just 1 second. So my name's Karen Watkins, business is Rowan Consulting. We've got about sort of 12 years worth of sort of helping clients in terms of sort of structuring and growing their business. We are HR and organizational design business. We're organizational coaches. So what we mean by that is that we work with businesses in terms of growth and change, but we do it through sort of managing individuals and people sort of like within the business. So we do it via the people arm rather than sort of what business coaches do, which is the financial arm. So we work with clients in terms of sort of like growing their business. We've gone from inception to about sort of 250 employees with some of our clients. And particularly sort of with this session, it will be around sort of building the brand and the pipeline of staff, which is what we do on a regular basis, taking clients away from that sort of like panic recruitment, so that last minute sort of type of recruitment, and into much more sort of towards planned and managed systems that allow you to be able to sort of do it from a much more attraction, retention, and a long-term sort of strategies based. So that's how we do it. And obviously our aim is sort of help them to grow. So my co-pilot for today, I can't actually see her on the screen, so I'm hoping she's still with me. So my co-pilot is Rowena.
Hello, I'm here.
She is, yay. Very much a technical specialist in terms of recruitment and NHR. She's a right-hand man within the business. She will shortly be making her way through the cabin with snacks and drinks. But she will predominantly be monitoring the chat and any questions as we go through. So obviously from the chat perspective, I think we've worked out that we can see the chat. Can you see the chat on your side, Ro?
Yeah.
Okay. If you can't see the chat, can I just ask you just to raise your hand, and Ro will obviously sort of monitor sort of anyone who's got their hands raised. Samir, your hand is raised at the moment. Was that from earlier when we were running a test? He's gone quiet.
No, I was muted. No, my hand was raised from earlier just as a test.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
lovely. I'm going to lower your hand then if we can.
I just raised my hand, Karen, because it says chat disabled. I can see it, but it says disabled, just so you're aware.
Okay, all righty. Well, rather than us having to sort of come off and go in and sort of like enable a chat, which I think is probably from a backroom sort of idea, what we'll probably do then is if you do have a question, just raise your hand and Ro will then obviously sort of come to you in turn from a raised hand perspective, if that's all right. So few notes and rules of engagement before we start. There's quite a lot of people, there's obviously people who are going to have the recording from this, but we've got quite a lot of sort of industries. We've got creative industry, education, health and social care, sustainability. So there's quite a lot of sort of different industries that we're aiming this presentation at. So the caveat will be is that some of this information will be sort of slightly generic. So hopefully you can sort of bear with us on that. It is a big topic to deal with. It does form part of, it's the beginning of what we say is the relationship, and it does form part of our much longer program that we run in terms of sort of from things like interviewing and onboarding, retaining and employee engagement. So we're going to be going through sort of the first part of that today, but some of it will be generic, but where possible, we have left sections where it's up to you to be able to come in and have a conversation as well. So please feel free for audience participation. The session is being recorded, as we know, and if you have any questions that you're not comfortable talking about here and you want to go offline, then please do. You've got all of our contact details. We'll share them at the end. And Rowena at the end will be asking those who have registered for the one-to-one HR support after this to be able to sort of stay on the line so we can capture your details afterwards, if that's okay. So before we begin, can I ask you to each take a piece of paper, doesn't have to be that big, but just take a piece of paper wherever you are. And can you divide that into 2 columns for me? And on one side, I'd like you to write takeaway. And on the other side, I'd like you to write commitment. Okay. Everybody done that so far? Can't see because I can't see anyone. So I'm assuming you do have a piece of paper and you have divided it, and you have one side you've got takeaway and one side you've got commitment. What we'll be doing is after each section that we go through, we'll ask you to write down one takeaway and one commitment from each section as we go forward, okay? So that you've got something that you can commit to and move forward to, all right? So let's move on then. Bear with me. Okay, so 3 things that we were looking sort of like to cover from the workshop perspective, basically sort of broken down into sort of attraction, which is around the short-term and the longer-term strategies to be able to attract staff. Performance, which is around using the key business drivers. When we talk about performance, we're talking about managing good performance, okay? Not so good performance is a separate, completely separate workshop. For today's purposes, when we say performance, what we're looking at is good performance, how to use key business drivers to engage and drive performance that grow the business. And in terms of reward and recognition, that is around engaging employees using less traditional sort of reward systems. And we'll talk about sort of the challenges of those as well. Now, when we did thank you for those who completed the questionnaire sort of beforehand. What we actually found from the questionnaire was something a little bit different to what we had planned. And the biggest area seems to be around the first part of this, around attraction. So gaining access to good staff, where to find them, and those strategies to be able to do it, and the challenges that you're currently facing, as well as things like quality and quantity of applicants, and also things like the blockers in terms of how we get around salary not being competitive, etc. So what we've done is we've sort of slightly tweaked the presentation to focus more in terms of that attraction side. So we'll be spending about sort of like 40 minutes looking at the attraction side. We'll probably spend about 30 minutes looking at performance, and then 20 minutes in terms of the reward and recognition side. So I hope that's okay for everybody. Can I just have a quick sort of show of hands? Are you happy for that breakdown? Is that the right feeling, that there is much more around attraction rather than sort of performance and recognition?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, Karen. Thanks.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
Right. Okay. The other thing I need to tell you is that we are actually giving an early Easter bonus. If you stay on the session to the end, we'll be sharing with you how you can get your hands on one of our free leader profiles. Okay. So in terms of from the leader profile perspective, it allows you, it's a very, very short questionnaire that we use with a lot of clients, and it allows you to be able to identify the type of leader that you are. On the reason why we're offering it is on the proviso that if you understand the type of leader that you are, how you recruit and engage your individuals within your business should reflect that. So we're giving you the opportunity that if you stay to the end of the session, we'll share a short link with you. You need to go in and click on the link and fill in the questionnaire, and then we'll arrange some time to be able to sort of feed that back to you in terms of sort of what that leader profile looks. And it is around sort of helping. The reason why we're offering it is obviously it helps with the recruitment and the retention of the team members for the types of people that you should be looking at in your business that will sort of support your business to grow. So that's just the other option that we'd like to offer you if you stay to the end of the session. Okay, so let's have a little look at attraction then. So the world in which we're living in, which is no surprise to anyone, I think, on the call, is we're working within a particularly tight labour market. We have a change of working practices in terms of hybrid working from home, and we have the ongoing changes in terms of sort of the cost of living, as well as sort of the 50 or so other things that as a business owner, the other sort of challenges that we face. So we are in a very, very different world now, even more so than what we were when we were in COVID. There's a lot of things that are sort of, moving. And the decisions now from individuals are much more driven in terms of where we sit within the current market. And this is nothing that you guys probably don't already know. But whereas before the market was very sort of favoured in terms of from a company perspective, and the channels therefore that we used in recruitment were much simpler, now through the 3 things that you see on there, it's very, very different, the market in which we're working with. As a result of COVID, people's purpose and choice changed massively. So how I can pretty much guarantee that everybody who is on the call saw some change in themselves in terms of choices and their purpose and how we decide to do things. Purchases now are much more purpose driven. Rather than I want it, I'll have it. If I want it, I will have it, and I will have it from somebody that, you know, meets my values, that matches my purpose. That I want, you know, I'll spend my money sort of like wisely, and I'll spend it, you know, where I want to. And that has even translated in terms of sort of from a business perspective, in terms of sort of recruitment and the types of companies that people are looking to join. So purpose and choice is reflecting how people are applying for jobs and why people are looking for jobs and what they're actually looking for from those companies. We know we have the environmental factors in terms of financial at the moment. They're being driven much more from a cost sort of perspective. And we have I can't underestimate this or overestimate this enough, in terms of the generational differences that we've got coming in within the market. We need to be aware in terms of how those generational differences are engaging with us from a market perspective. And just a few sort of interesting sort of facts. The way in which we present this when we're working with clients from a recruitment perspective is, over the past sort of 40 or 50 years, we've seen various different revolutions within the jobs market and within employees. First of all, we had, for those of you who are people of a certain age, the Industrial Revolution was when we first started, which was much more around, you know, our parents, my parents, having a job, and that job, you had to keep that job. That was what maintained your standard of living. And so our parents had a job, they kept the job, and the job was for life. There was no choice, that you were in it and you had it and you were very grateful for that. We then have what, in terms of recruitment, we then had the technological revolution, which is around sort of my generation, and I'm guessing sort of majority of the people who are on this call, where we had things from our parents. They allowed us to do things that we couldn't ordinarily do. In terms of jobs, we started to have a choice about where we wanted to work and how we wanted to work. We were able to sort of pick and choose who we worked for. There was a much more stronger element of mobility and stability. And therefore it meant that we had, as a generation, much more choice about where we wanted to work. And we then saw that change of, rather than job for life, we then started to see that transition into a job where we could move, and there was much more sort of mobility. The introduction of the World Wide Web obviously gave us a huge benefit in terms of where we worked and who we worked for. Now we are in very much, in terms of recruitment, we are in very much a social revolution. And I'm assuming it's Gen Z. I think we're still on Gen Z. I'm losing track of it now. But the social revolution that we are in now, of people who are coming into the market, it is all about sociability and allyship. And you may have heard the statement before, but the allyship is that they talk more, they share more, they do more, they use more. And we created this. I have to say, this is a parent of late teens, early 20s. They do an awful lot of that. We know that, you know, they do talk more, they do share more. They have an always on approach to working. So we need to just be aware that that generational difference that is coming into the market is not going to use the same level and the same methods and the same techniques as generations before were using. And I'll talk a little bit more about that sort of as we go through, but we need to just, the reason I just wanted to make you aware of that was, obviously that's going to change how, you know, how we're recruiting. And sometimes it's reflected in that frustration of not being able to access people at the moment. Why aren't they applying? Why can't I attract? How come I can't attract this, this and this? And it's just different ways of doing it. That's all. Glassdoor recently did a survey, and whether you like Glassdoor or not, they found that 76% of the people who were looking for jobs will always check the makeup of your team before deciding if they want to join you. So those people who are coming into your industry and are the next generation are already looking at you now and working out how your team sits and what your values are and what the company purpose is, in order to make a decision about whether to join you. So 3 out of every 4 candidates that you're hoping to attract are going to be looking now at you already to see whether they want to join you and be making a decision. And 80% of Gen Z, which is the generation we're seeing now, identify with allyship. They identify with sharing experiences. They identify with, like I said, with talking more and sharing more and living their life much more openly than potentially we used to. So what does this mean to you in terms of from a business and the challenges now? How do we sort of do things differently? Because of sort of from the social side, youngsters in terms of sort of various guises. And I think also as a result of some of the COVID fallout or the pandemic fallout, is that people, like I said, are making different choices about how they are applying and what they are applying for. So storytelling is becoming much more needed, is becoming much more of a requirement in terms of from a business perspective. Gone are the days of, permission to speak freely, but gone are the days of chucking a job advert out there online and hoping to hire the right person. Those days, unfortunately, if you don't already realize that, those days are gone, because the connection and the engagement that individuals want now, either from a generational perspective or from a purpose and choice perspective, are very much different. So those sort of short-term strategies in terms of the traditional adverts and the agencies, we all know are increasingly expensive. They're not this sort of, the cheapest way. It's very, very costly and incredibly sort of time consuming. Most people tend to find that by doing those short-term strategies, what you will get is higher volume, but lower value. And you only attract the active market, not the passive market. Okay. So if we now know that people are making the decision to stay in jobs because it's easier or it's safer or, whatever else, every time you put an advert out into the market, 80% of the time you are only ever going to attract the active market. So those that are currently looking. And if they're currently looking, you then have to decide why they're currently looking, what's the reason they're looking to move, etc. So 80% of you, when you put an advert out, will only attract the active market. And there is another huge market, untapped market, which is the passive market. So people who are not actively looking, people who are probably fairly comfortable with what they want, probably staying where they are because it's easier for them to stay there rather than sort of move out. They want to maintain some form of stability or status quo. Those are the ones that potentially there is a huge untapped market for you, that if you're just going with an advert, you will miss out on a huge, very could potentially be very interested market, because they're just passive and they're just not looking right now. So, you can spend an awful lot of time and money going out to agencies and going out to adverts and only ever attracting a very small percent of the market. They're just not out there and not, or relevant. So this gives you sort of like an example of that conversation, or that example. So when you type in, where is the best place to recruit, or, what's the top 5 platforms within the UK to recruit in terms of purpose, how do I recruit somebody? All of that information, and this is just comes that you can see in 60 seconds, it's pulled up. I can't even explain how many noughts are on that. If anyone else wants to give it a go, then you're welcome. But within 60 seconds, it is pulled up. If you type in where is the best place to recruit someone, that's the amount of results that come up. And on the other side, how do I recruit somebody? Everything you see is all around an advert. That's exactly what happens. And every time you do that, what they're doing is selling you a product. So, from an online advertising perspective, they are only interested in the product. They're not interested in solving your problem in terms of attraction of people. The product will not buy people. People buy from people. And therefore you have to get out there and you have to start sort of selling yourself, because the products, everyone's now doing the same thing. No one's doing anything particularly differently at the moment. You're not going to get access to that, to that market. So you need to ditch the traditional and start doing things a little bit differently, and away sort of from the market. We know that the biggest challenge right now is around needing to hire staff and can't find them. So we need to be starting to think differently about how we do things. So if I told you again, just from a cost perspective, if I told you again that the current rate in terms of hiring somebody through traditional methods is set at around £3,000. That's just to hire somebody. That's not including any other on costs, anything else in terms of from a salary perspective. And if you're using agencies, I don't know whether any of you actually do, but from an agency perspective, it's somewhere around 20 to 30% of the salary. So if you could take a small proportion of that money that you are currently spending from the more traditional route in terms of advertising or from the use of agencies, if you could take just a proportion of that, if you took 50% of that and put that into a pot, the interesting thing will be is how much money would that give you to be able to start looking at doing things sort of slightly differently. That's the question that, you know, that we try and sort of get clients to have a think on in terms of, you know, take 50% of your current recruitment budget with your current spend and use it sort of slightly differently. So let's talk longer term. From a longer term sort of strategy perspective, these will be aimed specifically at targeting the passive market. So when we're talking with the stuff that we're going to be talking to you about now is, what I'm not saying is ditch adverts and ditch agencies. Both Rowena and myself have a history in recruitment agencies. So we say what we say with love, but we know that market, we know how that happened, and we still know sort of how it's happening now. So when we are talking about it, we're talking about it with some form of knowledge and expertise in terms of having come from that market. For me, many years ago, Row, not so many years ago. But we're not saying don't use the adverts and we're not saying don't use the agencies, but what we are saying is we're going to actively encourage you to step away from using the traditional and to move into using something which is sort of slightly different in the way that we do it. And it is sort of slightly longer term. So long-term strategies, like I said, aimed at targeting the passive market. And these are around building your brand and storytelling and careers pages, ownership, and building sort of engagement. We're asking you to start thinking about building up a know, like, and trust with potential people who are joining your business. So very much like we do with our clients, you know, all of us, you know, I'm sure from a business perspective, we'll be talking about, you know, our clients, the relationships with our clients are very much built on know, like, and trust. It's very much around, you know, developing those. It's very much about giving them sort of what they want. What we're asking you to do is to think about using that model and transposing that model into your recruitment side. We have been working with a client recently. In fact, we've got two clients that we're working with at the moment, specifically in terms of recruitment. One is within the health and social care sector, and one is within manufacturing and engineering. And what we've done is we've actually worked with them on the brand and the storytelling and the career sort of side. So we are taking, in terms of that allyship from a generational perspective and a purpose from other generations, we are starting to talk to them about storytelling, about why their people join the business, what it is about the business that they really, you know, that they stay for. We're talking to some of their customers about the experience that they get by working with them. And we're starting to then create a little portfolio of stories around individuals, rather than sort of like the actual business, the individuals who are in it. And by putting that out, what that allows you to be able to do is you can connect with those types of things. Not everybody is going to connect with you as a result of it. Some people will knowingly take themselves out of the picture, but the people that you are starting to get to apply for those roles will be those ones who connect with you for some reason of allyship, or I want to be like that, or I want to be doing that, or I want to add value to that business there. We're then reflecting that in terms of careers pages and putting that through from the careers pages. We're talking about what my career journey might look like. If I joined you, what might I expect? And how does that, you know, how does that benefit me as an individual? So it's the WIFM, the what's in it for me mentality. If I join you, I'm joining you because I like your values, or I like your purpose, or I like your people, or all of them together. But also I'm joining it because there's a WIFM, there's something in it for me, and I can see what my progression route is. And what you then get is the engagement and the ownership of that. So when you get people who are coming to you, it's only up to you to show them what they need to be able to do. They're 70% with their feet in the door at that point. So building that sort of, building that brand, going back to, like I said, the purpose point and the choice point and accessing that passive market should enable you through those to start to be able to develop those. The other thing in terms of sort of strategies is around preparation. Can I just have a show of hands, those of you who've been on our workshops before, can I just have a show of hands? Does your current strategy or business plan contain a people strand? So can I have a quick show of hands? I can't see everybody on the screen. Can you see everybody on the screen, Ro?
Yeah, we've got two hands up, Karen.
Okay, all right. So two people then are saying that their business actually involves a people strand. So those of you who did raise your hand, is that usually because you don't know whether it contains a people strand or basically it doesn't? If I'll caveat this or I'll hedge this by saying most people don't have a people strand. So, if you're sat there going, people strand, what does it mean by people strand? That's fine. Our advice to you would be to add it in. So from when we talk about sort of people strands, where we sort of wider context in terms of from the organizational coaching perspective, we work with clients to deal with change and growth within their business. And from a growth perspective, we work in terms of strategy on a page. So we work with them to build that strategy on a page. And of that strategy on a page, it contains 4 core pillars. And those of you who have been to our sessions will know what these are because we talk about them a lot. So this, from a strategy perspective, it's not about a 52-page document. We condense it down and we put it onto one page. Of that one page, there are 4 core pillars. There is a financial arm, there is a customer arm, there is an operational excellence arm, and there is a people arm. So all 4 of those are within that sort of growth program. Most of you will have, something similar to that. And I think most people will have the financial arm at the top. Financial arm is fine. It's where business coaches tend to focus their time on. From an organizational perspective, business coaches will tell you that 2 and 2 needs to equal 4, and therefore your business will succeed. The way in which we come at it is that, yes, we 100% agree 2 and 2 will equal 4. But if your people don't fundamentally believe that 2 and 2 should equal 4, then you're still not going to get there. They will make 2 and 2 equal 64 if they want to. They will make 2 and 2 equal 5 if you want them to. So unless your people are aligned to the financial side and they're engaged and they want to be part of your business, then that's the issue that we have in terms of business coaching versus organizational coaching. So going back to the people strand of the business, when we're mapping things out, we work on a 3 to 5 year plan with clients, and we start looking at all 4 core areas across a 3 to 5 year program, and we actually physically build in that people strand. So we're talking about, if we have a financial target of X, and we're required to bring in X amount of customers as a result of that, operationally, that will mean we need to change this, and that will affect the people line in which we do things by needing to recruit 3 or 4 extra people. It may involve reducing people, but it will, all 4 strands tie very tightly together. So if you don't have a people strand in your business at the moment, then you're probably likely to see recruitment being quite quick. You're likely to see it being quite, probably more reactive rather than proactive. And by being reactive, what tends to happen is that you use the much more traditional methods. We have to have somebody who is within the business within the next 3 months. Therefore, we'll call the agency and we'll put an advert out and we'll see what happens. And then what happens is, rolling it back, is you're actually just attracting active markets, not passive markets. And how do we know we're actually attracting the right people who want to come and join our business, and linking that up? So when you know what's coming, you can prepare. And if you can prepare, you can front load your recruitment. So all the stuff that we're going to be talking to you about is going to allow you to have an already generated warm pool of candidates. That sounds bad. It sounds like some form of human soup. But there is a warm there's an engagement already happening in terms of what we would suggest that that you do. So that's long term. Now, I know that most of you are probably doing this at me now. I can't see your faces, so I don't know. And it will be around, yes, Karen, this is great, but actually I need them right now. And yes, I get that. I absolutely get that. So the ones that we're going to talk to you about, there will be some short-term wins versus sort of some, some longer term stuff that requires you to sort of lead up into it. And realistically, you'll never get away from recruit quickly. Somebody leaves the business and you're left with a month's notice in terms of from a contract perspective. Yes, we know that will, cause you to jump in and then, use those more traditional methods. But with what we're suggesting, where it should be able to get you to is to a point whereby if somebody does leave the business from a risk perspective, that you do have this already warm pool of candidates. I will think of something else to call it in a minute. Already ready, sort of like, and lined up to come into the, to come into the business that you're already sort of like having conversations with. So, are there any questions so far? Because I feel like I'm talking to myself, doing lots and lots of talking. Any questions or comments so far?
No, it's very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Okay. If there are, raise your hand, and we'll quite happily sort of just pause because I'm going to get fed up with my own voice in a while. So, power of two. I'm going to talk to you sort of about a list of sort of alternative things that you could potentially look at from a recruitment attraction perspective. And then some context around which ones to use now, or which ones you think you might be able to sort of start looking at in terms of the business. So first thing, plan ahead. Talked about this sort of on the previous slide. If we have a people arm strand within the business that, like I said, is linked to other arms. So again, just going back sort of to the earlier conversation. 4 arms that we use: financial, operational excellence, customer, and people. All of the 4 of them are linked. Most business owners look at it from a financial perspective. We need to be turning over this much money for this much, etc., etc. We need to increase, we're increasing, our financial target to X. Therefore, we need to potentially attract, I'm dumbing this down so slightly, we need to attract a certain amount of customers or sell a certain amount of products. So there's your customer arm. Operationally, then, we need to be increasing this, and we need to be doing this, and we need to be more efficient in doing this to be able to deliver what we need to be able to do. And as a result of that, we are likely to need less or more people. Okay, so it's like a calculation that you run through. By planning ahead and having those already in, you'll know that you're already, like I said, starting to generate a pool of people. I can't emphasize enough how sort of that planning and preparation will make things feel much more motivated, much more engaging, and less like you're treading through treacle when you're looking sort of for people. So plan ahead is the first one. Second thing is do some research on your current sources. I'm pretty sure if you had a look at what was going on in terms of, if you were putting an advert out, do you see anything happen in terms of your website hits? Do you see anything in terms, or website views? Do you see anything in terms of people looking at you from a LinkedIn perspective? Have certain people started to follow your company? Have people connected with you that you haven't thought about? Because once the advert's out, I think sometimes it's easy to go, cool, advert's out. Okay, I can get back to doing my day job and I'll wait for those invitations to come in, or I'll wait for those applications to come in. What I'm asking you to think about here is by putting that advert out, are you seeing any change in the background to other potential sources? And if so, go and check them out. Simply go back to the last time you were recruiting, or you put an advert out. Get someone to check your website hits, go and see where they were looking. Were they looking at your team? Were they looking at, just see what was happening in terms of that website map. go and have a look at your LinkedIn profile, see who was looking at you, check out your LinkedIn company page and see if anybody has decided to follow you and see what they're doing, because they will be the ones who are sat behind watching what's going on and deciding whether they want to be part of your tribe or they want to be on your bus. And sometimes it's a very underutilized, missed resource. It sometimes can bring people up. We're working with a charity, or have been working with a charity for the last sort of 3 years. And they were looking for a fundraising manager, which anyone who is from a charity perspective will know that fundraising managers are a little bit like rocking horse duty. Had put an advert out and were looking, you know, actively sort of like recruiting by sort of the traditional methods. And just sort of chatting to them one day, I was saying to them, "Oh, what does your company page look like?" And they were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh, how many people have you got?" "Oh, not very many, and we don't very often use it. We don't very often post stuff." And Interestingly, went in and there were 3 fundraising managers who were watching what was going on with the company. And one of the members of the team just actually connected with them back and said, "Hi, how are you?" One of them said, "Oh, I noticed that you were looking." Conversation started. Didn't actually accept that one. Didn't that went on a different conversation. And for whatever reason, they didn't hire that one. But they did hire somebody on a part-time contract basis as a result of somebody who was connected to them. So it's a very underutilized resource that people sometimes don't think about. So do some research on your sources, go back and check what happens and just see whether there are people on there, because rather people are coming to you and going, "Oh, I'm interested in what you're doing, and I'm interested in what you're saying." And, you know, those are the people that you want to be. That's your passive market that you want to attract, rather than the active market that is looking for some other reason. Okay, those in red are the ones that we can do now. So review your employer branding. Whether you choose to follow things like the employer reviews, like Glassdoor, never underestimate the power on which they've got and the information that they hold, even from a competitor perspective. So just have a look at your sort of employer branding. I'm not suggesting that you go out and do a whole load of new employer branding. That's not what I'm suggesting. But look at sort of where your company sits within the market at the moment. Is it expressing your values? Is it expressing your completely forgot the word I was going to use, but is it expressing sort of your purpose? Is it expressing your values? Is it expressing your purpose? Is it talking in the way that you would ordinarily talk? And I say this from personal experience. So from a website perspective, we had somebody who did the Rowan HR website. We're currently redoing it at the moment. As a result of what we learned, the tone of voice that you use needs to reflect who you are. So how you communicate and how you talk, and how you sort of, move around in terms of your business and connect with your people, it really needs to come through in terms of sort of employer branding on things like your website and what you're saying on sort of, your social media posts, etc. Because sometimes there is a massive mismatch. I've done it myself, the way in which the current sort of Rowan HR site is looking and the way that we want it to look, very, very different. Probably because it was designed by somebody else, and probably because we did it in a recruitment way and did it quite quickly. But there you go, there's me, there's my admission. So yeah, so review of your employer branding, have a look and sort of see whether it does actually reflect your tone of voice and your purpose and your mission, and and those types of things. And when I talk about mission, so those of you who were on the course last week will know, in terms of from a mission perspective, again, it's not about, please don't, let's not have a mission which is like mission, vision and values, which are like the 1990s type stuff where we just fly up the flagpole and see if someone salutes it. A mission needs to be really, really simple. Okay, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. Our mission from Rowan Consulting perspective is simply that everyone who comes into contact with us will benefit from it. That's what we want. And in terms of our values, it is around 3 simple values of trust, clarity, simplicity. Dealing with humans is way complicated enough. Everybody from a Rowan Consulting perspective, trust, clarity, simplicity. Keep it simple, make it clear. That's what it needs to do. So I'm not saying about mission, vision and values needs to be huge and overcomplicated. It just needs to say why you're there, because people will buy that and will look into you because of that. So just make sure that's clear. Build a pipeline. Start to build your know, like and trust, and engage with your followers. So if you have people on your social channels who are starting to follow you, then just engage with them. Just spend, ask somebody within the office to just spend 5 minutes, you know, following them back, liking their posts, commenting, you know, asking them if there's anything that they want to see from you, because they will be your future, your future recruits. So just spend the time just having a look at, you know, building that know, like, and trust factor. Big shocker, you don't have to pay to advertise. You know, some of our clients that we work with are sometimes quite surprised to know that, you know, you don't have to go for the all singing, all dancing, £550 a month package from most of the big, you know, most of the big job boards. You can do it quite easily. The algorithm sort of in the back, I don't know whether you know this, but when you post it up on one of the big job boards, the aggregate boards will automatically pick that up without you having to pay anything. So it's a bit like content proliferation. It goes off in different areas. I don't know, I can't remember who we've got on here in terms of creative marketing, so I apologize if I'm oversimplifying this. But from a recruitment perspective, the job boards, the bigger job boards, will actually, you know, you are actually on there for, you know, for they will try and engage you in terms of sort of like a monthly package or a CV library or a search or whatever, which again, just from a personal perspective, CV library and CV searches, not quite sure if I actually understand the principle behind that. Basically, I'm just chucking my thing up and then I'm waiting for someone to contact me. That's a very inactive, you know, market. I probably wouldn't recommend that you go for those types of options, because most of the time you'll ring them and they'll go, who and how much are you going to pay me? So just when you think about using those types of things, just be careful you're not caught up into buying into something which it's not going to work. No, 90% of the time it's not going to work. So yeah, you don't have to pay to advertise. You know, you can use some very cheap free resources, and aggregate boards associated with recruitment automatically take that, they drop it into the market, and you'll find your job adverts posted in various different places that you didn't even know about. So yeah, you don't have to pay to advertise. Use agencies with caution. Again, we say this with love. We know what, you know, we know what they do. We know that they will sell their grandparents for 10 pence each, but use agencies with caution. The reason, again, we say this is if you are recruiting somebody, why would you go to somebody who is disconnected from you to recruit that person on your behalf? I'd be interested to hear this when we talk about when we have the discussion point later, because the disconnect is that individual is not buying you, they're buying the recruitment agency, and they're buying the relationship they have with the recruitment agency when they should be buying the relationship with you. So, and the other thing is they're using the same methods. So they are doing the employer branding, they are building a know, like, and trust, they're gaining a network, you know, all the things we're talking to you about, we're asking, you know, you to do the same. So just use agencies with caution, and just think, you know, some of you will have amazing connections with agencies, and I'm not saying that all of them, you know, all of them are not good. There are some very, very good, strong agencies. We have a lot of contacts within agencies, but just use them with caution, on the grounds of, if we're talking about next generational purpose allyship, that connection, that allyship will not be with you if you use a recruitment agency. It will be with them rather than you as a business. So just have a think about that. Use them with caution. Consider using other tools to aid your decision making. And when we talk about other tools from a decision making perspective, really simple things like recommend a friend. We've recently done this with a client of ours, taking half of that budget. So they had a very large budget in terms of the money that we're spending with agencies and online. 50% of that budget came out, and I think it equated to something like 1/8 of that budget for a very strong recommend a friend program. So you can afford to pay, you know, incremental payments to individuals who are coming via a recommend a friend scheme. It can be a very, very cost-effective way of doing it. So just consider things like recommend a friend, industry groups. I know some of you who, when you came back with the questionnaire, were saying about the generic sort of side of job postings, it doesn't actually fit the industry. Industry groups are probably quite underrepresented, and will love you if you go to them and say, we're looking for somebody, can you help us make connections, you know, in terms of pushing the job advert out, or, you know, where we should post it, or everything else. So never underestimate industry groups. They can be very, very useful. Existing connections. LinkedIn, again, another connection is a client of ours had had a role and then again was sort of doing the sort of LinkedIn, you know, the LinkedIn search, was looking for sort of a certain type of person. And then there was something at the bottom, which is people have also viewed this profile. And I think it was data analysts. And she was sort of looking for a certain type of profile. She's very active on sort of terms of LinkedIn, and was and suddenly realized after about 2 years of using LinkedIn that there was this other little thing called people have viewed this profile. And started clicking on there and is having amazing success as a result of it, because, you know, she's finding that all sorts of people are just engaging with her and liking what she's posting, and also then connecting with her as well. So she's been particularly successful. And then the other tools that we use are things like predictive index. So in order to aid decision making, a lot of our clients will use, actually it's the leader profile that you guys have the option of doing at the end. That's via predictive index, and it's a tool. There are other tools are available. The reason we use it is because it actually looks at motivations, the sort of motivation and behaviors side of individuals. So on the principle that if I can find somebody who's particularly motivated, therefore engagement goes up, therefore productivity goes up, etc., etc. So, you know, consider tools like PI in terms of to be able to aid your decision making, you know, if it's you've got candidates that are coming in and you just want to sort of belt and brace those decisions. And consider alternative options to fill your gaps. A very underutilized market, again, universities, grad schemes, especially sort of certain times of the year, grad schemes are particularly successful. There's a lot of press at the moment in terms of sort of grad schemes. Apprenticeships, again, very sort of underutilized. Have some challenges in terms of apprenticeships. I know we work with a lot of, you know, the sort of bigger colleges in terms of apprenticeship schemes, and sometimes they don't quite fit, or you can't quite get access to them because you can get 8 points, but you can't get the 9th. But still worth sort of looking at in terms of sort of challenging markets. Traineeships, T-levels. We've recently had a T-level person within our business who was amazing. And so, yeah, you know, never sort of underestimate, you know, those types of things as well. So I'm going to have a drink a minute because I'm getting tired of my own voice. So comments, thoughts so far? Anything there which surprised you? Anything which you've gone, yes, well, that's not going to work, Karen, is it?
I really like the recommend a friend scheme. That really resonates, I think, with me, because we've had quite a lot of staff in our organisation at Young Somerset, which is a youth work charity, where people have, once they're in the organisation, we don't have problems retaining them, but it's just getting them in. And then we've had lots of people that have sort of then spread the word automatically.
Yeah, and that's a really good example of that storytelling side. That, you know, if you know that the ones that you do recruit are, you know, are very loyal and they love it, and once they're in the doors, oh my God, you know, they stay for life. You know, yes, recommend a friend schemes tick, but also have a look at that sort of storytelling side, because I'm pretty sure your guys will do a brilliant job in terms of why we work for you and what's great. What's great about it. So anything else? Anybody got any other thoughts? No? Okay. So here's the commitment side then. So pull out your list of what, for those of you who might have joined the call sort of slightly later, at the start, what I asked you to do is just have a piece of paper, scrappiest bit of paper ever. It doesn't have to be brilliant, but grab a piece of paper, divide it either this way or this way, whichever suits you. On one side, write takeaway, and on the other side, write commitment. Because what I'm going to ask you now is I'm going to ask you to put one takeaway, write down one takeaway, and also write down one commitment. So when you get off this call, what will you, you know, commit to doing? And if anybody would like to share that, that would be amazing. So if you want to share it, raise your hand and Ro will come to you in terms of the feedback. Oh, Rachel, you raised your hand.
Hello. Yeah,
Hello.
that's really useful. Thanks so much, Karen, for all this. I think for my takeaway, I've got written down people buy from people, which I thought was a really interesting insight. And then for commitment, I've just written down about checking the sources, because that's definitely something actionable that I can do that probably just not been lazy, but you just don't think about it, do you? So yeah, I'm going to try and do that after the call.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think the sources bit is the sort of cheapest, the cheapest sort of quickest area. One of the frustrations I think we get from clients is it's also draining and demotivated and time consuming, and 100%, it can be very time consuming in terms of from a recruitment perspective. And just a little bit of that time checking out your sources can probably save you, a whole load of stuff. And the other thing is, we were talking to a client about this a couple of weeks ago. This is the manufacturing engineering client, and they struggle to recruit. It's the engineers row, isn't it? That they're the on-site engineers that they're looking at. And everybody, I think, everybody knew about sort of LinkedIn, but nobody was jumping in and sort of getting involved. And I was saying to the MD and the operations director, you also have a role to play here, because making connections, people are always very interested to see who's checked them out and who's been looking at your profile. And there's something really weird, quite voyeuristic about sort of people going, oh, so and so's checked me out, and oh. If they're checking you out, or you find somebody that you think, if you're going back to that, people, how does it work? So people who viewed this profile. So you sort of looking at individuals and you go, people who viewed this profile also view this profile, and then you sort of connect on them. If you're looking at them and they then come back and look at you, connect with them, because they're looking at you for some reason. There's a reason why, and they might just be looking at you as if to go, why are you checking me out? But equally, they might be looking at you because they're going, oh my God, that is a really interesting company. Now, they're not going to jump immediately. You're not going to get, not very often, you're not going to get an immediate hit back from something like that. So it's very unlikely that you will go, people who viewed this profile also viewed this profile, and you click on it and you like them, and that connection isn't going to happen overnight. But if you're engaging with them and you're following them, they will then start seeing your stuff. They will then start deciding about decisions that they make. And then that's the point where they go, that's a really cool company. I want to find out some more about them. I'm going to follow them. Then what I'm going to do is, after I'm going to follow them, I'm going to start engaging with them. And then when I start engaging with them, oh my God, that's where that's where it really happens. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Anybody want to share sort of commitments or takeaways?
I don't mind going. I've written down storytelling is powerful, and as a sort of side to that what I call going organic or passive is a valid method. Having had some experience of trying to recruit through apprenticeship scheme, a particular challenge for me in what is a fairly techie skilled industry versus training up fresh talent or people with an interest in my field of digital accessibility and sustainability. The challenge is finding people through a scheme like that. Invariably, I would get people sent to me who are interested in digital marketing, which is not the same thing as what I do. So that was one challenge. But the commitment I've written down is I've done quite a lot of the sort of storytelling, and it's a personal journey. Really, the business has grown out of my personal journey in my career. But embedding that in the strategy and in the recruitment materials, because through other conversations I've had about recruitment, as sort of scary as taking on the first employee kind of feels, what I'm looking for is somebody who is like me, which in a way, complementing skills, but hiring on values, and somebody who is coming to join as a first employee is not somebody like a lot of people, because there's a lot of trust that is needed to join a startup company as one of the first sort of few employees. You're not joining a known entity, so my brand is not well known, and I've probably got I'm probably known as me more than my people know my brand. So there's quite a lot of me in the business.
Yeah.
So I'm very conscious of that and taking that forward into taking those first slightly scary steps into recruitment.
It is the scariest thing ever, John, and I speak out of experience, and Ray will know this. I speak out of experience. Scariest thing ever, but best decision I ever made. Best decision I ever made. It's like it's like just get off the fence, jump over the other side. And for those of you who are on the call, John, you've just released your new website, haven't you? Isn't it? Didn't it go live last week?
Yeah, so the soft launch last year, which was kind of me going from freelance and doing a lot of subcontract work for businesses that do what I do, towards creating the kind of business I want to work for.
Yeah.
So there's been a bit of a delay in getting the branding and stuff together, but yeah, the new website and shiny new branding went out last Monday.
Yeah. So there you go. If you need anybody, just check John out. He's on LinkedIn, as it should be limited. Go check out his website. It's a good story, John, as well. You know, having met you last week, it's a good story, isn't it? So
Yeah, thanks.
right.
Go
Okay.
check it out.
Yeah, go check it out. And while you're there, you can check out rowanhr.com as well. Right, Ro, how are we doing time-wise? We're probably on track. We're just on track.
Yeah, we're just past 10 o'clock.
Okay, right. So we have the option of a very quick break now, if anybody wants to take one. If you don't want to take a break and you're happy to carry on, I am very happy to sort of carry on as well. If you want to take a quick break, we can do 5 minutes. Show of hands for those who want to which one should we do? Show of hands for those who want to take a quick break, quick 5-minute break. How many have we got, Ray?
We got 3, but I think it's a good idea. 4. Well done, Lindsay. 4. 5. Yes, well done, Rachel. Yes.
I just want that big cup of tea.
I know.
Coffee. I'm not sure what it is.
I choose the
that
wrong
mug.
picture, didn't I?
Yeah,
That is
same.
my new favourite mug.
It's huge.
I was like that.
Right.
Wasn't thinking about it till the mug came up.
That picture. Your fault, Karen. Should we take 5 minutes then?
Yes. Yeah. So it's now, what time is it now? 10:05? So
Yeah.
5 minutes, grab a cup of tea, do what you need to do, and then we'll reconvene back here in about 5 minutes, if that's all right.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen.
Do you want to go get a cup of tea, Ro?
No, no, I don't. I'm fine. I just want to have a look at this. I've just been trying to sort out this chat in the
Oh, in the Zoom thingy.
yeah. And I've clicked every button possible, but it doesn't seem to be
It might be because we're in.
working.
It's fine. It seems to be working, right? It's nice. People are engaging. So
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
good.
cool. As long as you're happy with that, then that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good. So in terms of questions, I think you've got the questions up on yours, so we'll just
Yeah.
go through those.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm just going to go offline just for a second. I'll be back in just a sec. Okay.
I might just make a quick cuppa.
Okay. All right. See you back here in 2. Right, how many people have we got back? Everybody back? Raise your hands if you're back. John's back. The other people are now frantically running around going, I can hear it speaking.
What am I missing?
We'll just give it another couple of minutes and then we'll.
Sally said she was trying to join, but Zoom was doing an update. And,
Oh, really?
yeah, so I don't think she's managed to join.
Okay, that's fine, because I think it's still, yeah, we're still recording.
I had the same thing when I started, so that's why I was a few minutes late. Zoom was doing its thing.
Oh. That's the thing with Zoom, is you always go on, don't you? You think it's going to work immediately, and then all of a sudden you realise then that actually it needs to just randomly run an update, and you're like,
that's just computers in general.
Lindsay, are you okay? Your hand was raised. Did you have the same thingy?
Just to confirm, I'm back.
Oh. It's probably where we find a lot of people are going to go, yeah, no, Zoom's not the best place. We were umming and ahhing between sort of Zoom and Teams. We were like, Zoom, Teams, Zoom, Teams, Zoom. Maybe we'll run another one on Teams, Ro. See how we get on with that, if it's any better.
Yeah, as a comparison.
Mm.
Good.
Okay, so let's carry on then, because people who are watching this on record are probably getting well bored now. Fast forward to all of this on a record.
Watching us drinking our tea.
Yeah, this is interesting. How to recruit effectively, second drink tea. Right, okay, well, we'll carry on back. Hopefully people will join us. When you are back, just raise your hands, just so we know that everyone's back in the room. Okay, so cool, looks like people are coming back. Excellent. Okay, alrighty. So right now there were quite a few questions in terms of the initial questionnaire that we sort of sent out. So what we wanted to do is just give a little bit of time now to have a little bit of reflection and to address some of those challenges and questions. So Ro, I think you've got the list of those questions which are coming through. There is probably a sort of common theme, sort of like to some of them. So if guys, if this is your question and we're about to sort of try and answer it, and we're not sort of quite hitting the mark, or there's something else that you want to know, again, raise your hand. You don't have to have asked the question to raise the hand. You can raise your hand on any of these, but we'll work through and answer some of those questions in terms of those challenges. And if you want any more information, raise your hand and Ro will come to you and we can pick it up and deal a little bit, with a little bit more detail. So yeah, just we'll sort of work our way through over the next maybe sort of just 5-10 minutes. We'll just quickly run through these, if that's all right, Ro.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really good questions here as well. So so the first question is around kind of finding good talent, and it's that quality versus quantity, that balance.
Okay, so is this a question from somebody who is online, or is this from one of our recordings? So what was the question again, Ro? It's around finding a balance between
quality and quantity.
Quality and quantity. Okay, yeah, it's probably quite a common question then. So finding good people, hopefully sort of some of the information that we've already addressed will give you an idea in terms of, I think sometimes it is that part of the actives versus passive market. I think if you're looking for good people, if you can define what good means to you, purpose, values, knowledge, education, specialist skills, if you can define what good looks like for you, then I think that would then lead you to where you need to go. So if on a basic sort of principle, if we're looking for somebody who is technical specialist within, I don't know, just using the creative industry, a technical specialist within the creative industry who has a certain amount of years worth of experience, and who needs to understand this type of project work or industry, then that would lead me to believe that probably adverts will support what you want to do. But I think in terms of attracting that good candidate, it's probably more around industry bodies, it's about connections, and it's about the network more than sort of it would be, rather than the traditional get the advert out and see what we can attract, because that, like I said, is going to hit current active market, and current active market is just so much of an unknown. It's just like so that would be my advice.
I don't think you can underestimate the connections part of that either, can you?
No.
It is, you know, just talking to the people that you know is massive.
Yeah.
And so easy and free.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, this resonates with me, having worked in recruitment agency for a number of years. How do I look at get appropriate applications? So tailoring it to get appropriate application and not just dross that's coming through. So, you know, the classic, see a job, send my CV. Yeah, I'll apply for that. I'll apply for that.
Yeah. Okay. So yes. So this is why we say, this is a very reason why we say don't just use an advert as a standard traditional means, because you sort of push it out, and actually what happens is you'll get people who are randomly a little bit chancy. Interesting, it'd be interesting to see how many hands get raised here, but have you ever posted that job advert out and it's gone out, and then all of a sudden you get random people where you've gone, only apply if you have this, and they'll still apply anyway. So you get somebody, you're looking for this level, and all of a sudden you get like this level, and it's just the wannabes market. And I think that's the concern with just using the advert channel, is that it's slightly hit and miss. It's a little bit like firing indiscriminately at a wall and hoping some of it will stick. And it can be incredibly costly and incredibly time consuming. So appropriate applications, again, goes back to that good. Define what good looks like. What are you looking for? John was talking about, you know, having people that are aligned to his values. So if you have that, it's looking for people, define what good is, and then don't necessarily use the ad side. Go to those different sources and push it out into those different sources. Hopefully that helps.
The next question is around salary expectations and managing salary expectations. How do we do that at advert and interview stage?
Okay, again, was this a question from somebody who's currently online? If it was, raise your hand. Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so how do we do that on an advert and interview stage? So managing salary expectations, again, it's one of those things, it's really random, and I have quite a transparent face, and it probably comes out an awful lot. When people go, should I put the salary on an advert? Yeah. If you don't put salary on an advert, that's like me saying to you, I bought you a car, but I'm not going to tell you what color it is, and I'm not going to tell you where it is, and I'm not going to tell you when you can pick it up, and I'm going to tell you whether it's got 4 wheels. I'm just going to get you to trust me and just apply. No one in their right mind is going to do that. And especially now with all the financial challenges, people are going to want to know, if I'm going to apply to you, I might apply to you because you're the National Trust and I want to go and work, I want to go and work outside. There'll be those types of incidents where they probably won't need to see the salary because they're going to buy into you anyway. But 90% of the time, people are going to want to know what they're buying. They're going to want to know what they're coming in for. So put the salary on the advert. You'll always get people that will either be below or above that. It's about the wording that you put in on the advert that will make it attractive, as well as the salary. So they're going to look at salary, but it just blows my mind that people think it's okay to not put a salary on an advert when you just go, again, it's like asking, me telling you to bought you something, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Very random. And in terms of if you're in a market whereby the salaries, so going back to sort of the charity side and the health and social care side, we know from our clients' perspective that they struggle from a salary perspective, and 100% I get that. I suspect somebody might be thinking, oh yeah, but if I put the salary out and it's not competitive, it's just going to feel a little bit awkward. Just do it, because what you're going to do is there's so much more other than salary that people will buy into from your business, so much more. So you have to get out of the mindset of, oh, the salary bit is going to be the awkward bit and can't have that conversation. Just put it out there, but put it out there with a caveat of going, the salary is this, but we offer this And it's the offer part, the extra part that people will buy into. You know, we were saying very originally, the result of COVID, people are making purpose-based decisions now. So it's about what is important to me and what do I want to do. Ordinarily, some people might be chasing the money and, you know, the London salaries and working in London and living somewhere else. COVID changed all of that. So salary isn't just the main thing that people will be looking for. So put your salary out, but also talk about all the other really, really rich, good stuff that you do, because it doesn't always hang off of a salary.
Thank you. So next question, you've kind of answered this a bit, but we'll just cover it off again, is advertising is draining and time consuming. How can we get away from this?
If I may be so bold, step away with great strides. Hopefully, again, some of it, you know, we've covered it before, but, you know, I would say phase yourself off of traditional, if you're just using adverts, phase yourself off of that. By all means, continue to use them, but have other things around that you are doing. Adverts tend to be a reactive response to something which has happened and we need to hire quickly. So my response, my response would be is start building that out with the other ways of doing things that we talked about earlier, and start weaning yourself off of adverts, because yeah, sometimes they don't work, and I get you, they're just incredibly demotivating and time consuming. 100%.
So like using the storytelling and that sort of thing instead of sort of building up to it. Yeah. Okay. A question here around managing progression opportunities internally.
Managing progression opportunities. So is that somebody who joined, or is that somebody, do we know if that's somebody who's joined, or is that somebody who is managing progression opportunities at advert interview stage? Is there any more detail on that one or not?
No, there aren't. No, unfortunately.
Okay, if it's managing progression opportunities, advert,
I'm guessing it's once they've joined. I'm thinking.
Yeah, it sounds like it is.
From yeah.
I think.
Okay, so yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, this wasn't a question that I posed, but it is something I've been thinking about, and I think a little bit of both. You know, how do we convey that in a succinct but useful way at advert stage, but also, you know, what kind of opportunity, what kind of things can we do? I guess it's different between each sector, each business, but I'm kind of interested in both aspects.
Yeah, I think, and actually, John, yours is a good example, because we had somebody recently who is he's a wine merchant, Rare, isn't he? Chippenham, Wine Monkey. Anyone who's
my best friend.
Yeah. Anyway, wine. So anyone who doesn't know, so we have a colleague or a connection that we have in Chippenham, and he's just set up a business called Wine Monkey. Go check it out. It's brilliant. And the conversation we were having was around sort of the first person joining the business and going into the unknown. So, and that sort of, you know, is around those managing opportunities. When you're recruiting somebody for the first time and it's a startup business, never ever back away from that story. That is an amazing story. You will get somebody, realistically, you're going to get somebody from a profile perspective who is going to be incredibly motivated and incredibly engaged, because you are a new business, and they are the, you know, risk takers, they are the adventurists or the venturers, they're the promoters, they're the, you know, they're that very unique profile that love to be in it from the start. So never back away from that story. It's an amazing story, and if you tell that story, you will naturally engage those individuals who are motivated by startup. Realistically, will they still be with you in 5 years' time when things have calmed down and the business is growing, or you're in a period of stability? They might not. They might not be motivated by the same things. They might be, you know, it might be like, oh, I was in it for the thrill, the chase, and the excitement of the setup and everything else, and now, well, I'm not so sure. That's fine. It's that motivation behaviors part that we were talking about from that Predictive Index looks at. You might not retain them, but to attract them, tell that story. And in terms of managing opportunities, if you're an established business, managing opportunities is around being very clear with them, with them. So if you had to write something, and we wouldn't suggest doing this at advert stage. I'll explain sort of difference advert, job description, interview in a minute. But in terms of from an advert perspective, it's the teasing part. In terms of managing opportunities and development when you're in the business, that's the part that you want to talk about when you're in interview stage. And to be able to explain to them, you know, clearly, if you sat down and went, okay, if I was them and I was using the Witham mentality, what would I be saying to them if we had to say what's in it for me? Well, actually, let me tell you what's in it for you. What's in it for you is we are a progressive organization. There is an opportunity to develop into this type of role. There is an opportunity, and it's not always about this ladder. It's about this ladder and then jumping somewhere else and then going up or moving around. So not everybody's going to come to you wanting progression, and that's good. You don't want everybody wanting progression, or your business is going to fall over. So when you're talking about managing opportunities, think about it from a Witham perspective, write down that, and then go to them at interview stage with that, because that's the point that they will buy into, and you will attract those types of people by the very language that you're using anyway.
Cool.
Thanks.
Have you got anything else on that, John, at all?
No, I don't think so. That was useful. No, it's fine. Thank you.
Next question around job platforms, and which ones are the best to use? And I assume that's around advertising for jobs.
Okay, if you're going to use them, use ones which are related potentially to the industry sector that you are related to. So, and Ro, you might have an opinion on this. So generic job boards attract generic applications.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking at something which is slightly more, again, I'll use things like sustainability, creative, you know, the creative industries, you know, those types of people, they're probably not going to be hanging around in that space, if I'm honest. You might opportunity, you know, pick one up, but they're probably not going to be hanging around. You need to, in terms of from a platform perspective, is to go to different platforms. So go to your LinkedIn, go to your connections, do your network, go to your industry groups, pass it around that side, hang out where they will hang out, and you're probably likely to get that in a better platform.
Yeah, agreed.
Did you have it? Yeah, did you have anything else that you can add on that?
No, I was going to say for the more general roles, if you are looking for kind of general roles, then one job board that we do use is Indeed, but it involves quite a lot of work in terms of manipulating your job description, you know, to be able to attract, you know, using the right keywords and that kind of thing. So it does take a bit of time and it does take a bit of effort. And I would probably agree with you, Karen, in terms of focusing on those groups and those connections and those stories. And I think eventually these job platforms are eventually going to probably dwindle out a little bit.
Contentious.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not saying anytime soon, I'm just saying final question, and then we'll move on. So
okay.
And we've sort of covered this again, but what advice would you give on what channels to use?
Okay.
So again, not just for adverts, but I guess you're looking at your LinkedIn groups and profiles and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, sort of, you know, it's multi-channel. That's what I would say. It is, you know, it's multi-channel, not just adverts, LinkedIn groups, you know, profiles, competitors. Because that's the other thing, is people back away from looking at competitor stuff. And again, it amazes me because I'm like, well, why, you know, jump on in there. We're not saying you're going to steal them, but, you know, to be able to sort of, you know, have a look and see sort of, you know, where they're potentially even where they're advertising. You're not looking at, you know, I don't know what's going on, but, you know, just check them out in those other sources and see where they're advertising. You know, they may have hit something that you haven't thought about. So, and
I think there's also a little bit around writing a job advert, which we touched on. I just touched on, you know, with it talking about Indeed, but writing a job description and writing a job advert are two quite different things. I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so yes, they are very, very different. And again, I think it's you know, what happens is in the speed and the haste of things is you upload a almost near complete job description when you're putting a job advert out. Don't do that, would be my advice. So in terms of an advert, remember that the advert is designed to tease them out. Okay, so if you're going to place an advert, wherever you're going to place it, even if you put them on, I don't know, other platforms, the advert is designed to tease out your potential market. All right, so you're using the types of words that you think those people would do. So if you use the WIFM principle when you're writing your job advert, write it with WIFM in mind. So if you're going to write it, get your job description out, WIFM in the middle, find out what's in it for me, write those out, put that information into the advert. You don't need to put War and Peace into a job advert. It should be ideally designed to tease out the types of people that you're looking at. Okay. And it's designed for them to want to go, oh, I want to meet them. I want more information. So you're dropping little bits out and wanting them, making them want to go, give me a little bit more, give me a little bit more. What are we talking about? Job descriptions is how you measure productivity and output in your business. Okay. So for those of you who do use job descriptions, most people still do of some form. Job descriptions should be designed, should be written to measure productivity and output in your business. If I'm coming to you, what would you want me to deliver? What am I here to do? Okay. Too much info on a job advert will switch people off, and too little on the JD will likely lead to them not focusing on the right areas of your business. So that's two real key important pieces of information. Advert, tease, minimal information with them. Job advert, 100% productivity and output. And when you're interviewing, there's probably a whole separate workshop, but recruitment interviewing is not as easy as people think it is. And recruitment interviewing should be based around the job description, productivity, output. So come get on my bus. And again, those of you who know that we use the bus analogy, come get on my bus, come and join my bus. But when you are on the bus, your role is driver, passenger, mechanic, tire pumper upper, those types of things. Okay. But what is the productivity? What will I be doing while I'm here? That's your job description. Productivity, output on the business, and it gets them focusing on the right areas of the business. Then they don't come in going, oh, but you told me I was thought of going to be a driver and now I've had to do the tire pumper upper and I don't want to do it. Blah, blah, blah. So that's why we say be really strict on the two: job description, job advert, two completely different things.
Cool.
Okay.
Right, we're at 10:30, so I think we should move on.
We need to move on.
Questions. Yeah.
Okay, right. So we're going to briefly touch on performance and reward. And again, raise hands as we go through if you want to. Again, now we're talking about good performance. Bad performance, completely separate, completely separate conversation, completely separate workshop. So this is around good performance, and it's using the key business drivers to be able to engage and drive performance that grow your business. Okay, so going back to what I'm saying about job description, those are around the outputs and productivity. They should be linked to what the key drivers in the business are in order to be able to grow your business. Okay. Just out of interest, before we start, how many of you actually talk about performance outputs at interview stage? Do any of you do that as a matter of course, like naturally?
What do you mean by that question, Karen? As in performance outputs in what way?
So do you talk about, so if you're going to come join us, what we expect is for you to deliver X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to relate it to your industry, Samir, but I'm struggling a little bit.
Sorry, I'm struggling as well.
we expect you to deliver that. Well, there's two sides to your business, actually, isn't there, in terms of what you'd want. You need the human side, the compassion, the understanding, etc., for the work that you do with those individuals. So there's going to be a human compassion or human side, and then there will be the technical expertise. You're asking them to deliver a certain amount of classes or resources or education streams or whatever else.
Yeah.
So when I say, do you talk about performance outputs when you're talking to them at interview, rather than tell me about the time when you've had to deal with a challenging situation, or tell me about the time you've had to deal with a difficult customer? Do you use that type of interviewing, or do you use competency-based interviewing, which is around when you come in, the role is going to be doing this. Would you look to deliver that level of engagement with those individuals that we would expect in order to get the output of recruiting more students in or more parents in, etc.?
Okay, yeah, so we definitely use the first one, really, the performance based on giving sort of some comparators because
Yeah.
with our industry, again, we don't need necessarily a teacher qualification. It's more about the individual and the individual's experience with working with children, and then we kind of provide the training that is needed. So it's definitely based on performance with past experience, I would say.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else from an interviewing sort of perspective?
Yeah, it tends to be a bit of both, actually. Like a few of those looking back and asking people to talk about experiences they've had. But I actually, when you're the way that you've just said that, then it seems so clear now, actually, that a bit more of our focus should be on asking people what they would do in a particular job, because I think if you're asking experiences, you'd assume that people wouldn't lie, but I think there's more scope for people to make things up or fabricate something or kind of, yeah, exaggerate a previous experience. But if you're kind of asking, what would you do to approach XYZ problem, they can't really get around what their approach would be and having to think on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and 100% you're right. There will always be those individuals, and again, I'll talk to you about these in a minute, but in terms of from a PI perspective, it's what we call the high extrovert, low risk individuals who have the ability to chat really, really well, and they're very technically competent in terms of from an interview perspective. And they're the ones that you hire and then go, wait a minute, that wasn't what they said that they would do at an interview. And honestly, it happens so often. On the recruitment interviewing training that we do, it's about identifying, getting beneath that layer and being able to sort of talk to them about, you know, the technical. There's always going to be a human side and a technical side, but when we were talking about the job descriptions, that is about the outputs and the productivity. Combine the two. So by all means, talk to them about, you know, the types of clients that you've worked with before, the challenging situations, etc. But there will always be something in your job description which is based about productivity and the output. There will be financial implications, there will be operational efficiency implications, there will be customer implications, there will be people in terms of team. So all those 4 pillars that we use across the whole business when we're from the sort of coaching perspective, all those 4 pillars transpose across the business. So they transpose into recruitment advertising, they transpose into recruitment interviewing, they transpose into productivity and output. So you need to be asking them questions about, you know, technical questions to get beneath those who are able to talk the talk, but not necessarily able to walk the walk. So thanks, Rachel.
Sorry, just Karen, just to go back onto that, that's really useful. What were those 4 pillars that you mentioned? Was
Okay.
team one of them?
Yeah, so 4 pillars that we use financial,
Yeah,
operational excellence. So that is around business improvements, what we need to do differently, how we can be efficient, etc.
yeah.
Then there's your customer stream, and your customer stream might be customer service, or it might be customer MPD. So what industry are you in, Rachel?
So it's a I really struggle with an elevator pitch. In a nutshell, it's I manage the creative team, but we work on sustainability issues and how to communicate them. So we're like a consultancy, but our clients tend to be, you know, like governments or environmental initiatives or new funded projects, NGOs, that kind of thing, or charities, and we help them with their comms and messaging.
Perfect. That's everything we were talking about all the way through, from the creative industry or sustainability industry.
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. Yeah. Environmental in there, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so the 4 pillars are financial, operational excellence, customer, and then people. And the people, like I said, the people strand is the one that most companies miss, because you're going to come into contact. People means customer, people means team, people means recruitment. It can mean a whole different, you know, strand of things. But yeah, all those 4 pillars should be covered all the way through the business. And that's what makes your bus your bus. So those of you who again were on the course last week or have worked with us before, you'll know that our Grow program is based around overarching 4 core pillars and around how we transition that into the business naturally, so that when we're talking about it, people don't go, oh, I don't have a strand in terms of finance. I don't know how I'm connected to finance. And you're just sat there going, you do. How you make a cup of coffee impacts on the financial line. So everything everybody does is related to all 4 pillars. We've sort of trialed this out numerous times over the last sort of 8 years. And, you know, those 4 pillars are the strands that when you tie them together, they're all massively interchanged and interlinked. So pull them through, start using them right from advertising and recruitment and interviewing, etc.
Sorry,
Um,
thank you.
That's okay. I've gone off on a different track now. I have to bring myself back. I'm just going to go back to my go back to presentation, which actually ties in really well. So yes, core pillars across your business, define and use them across the business. And yeah, some people use different ways of doing it. Our way of doing it isn't necessarily the right way in the way that you should be doing it, but there should be some definition within your business from a business strategy perspective around what you're aiming to deliver, and then how that reflects across your business. And our program is just the way that we talk to clients. It becomes very natural and very sort of part of just everyday speak, but once you start doing it. Okay, talk about performance at interview stage. This goes back to that conversation. So match it to the business goals. Come get on my bus. My bus is brilliant. People will pimp their business bus massively. But if you're going to say, come get on my bus, tell them what they're going to do when they're on the bus. Okay. And it sounds really simple because people go, well, if I put a job out for this, they're going to know what that means, aren't they? Zookeeper's a zookeeper. No. A zookeeper looks after different animals. It has the technical capability to look after large ones rather than small ones. You need to understand, it's not just about a zookeeper, it's about nutrition. It's a very random example. But the business goals that you are looking for, talk about that at interview stage. That will get that difference between these people and these people that can walk the walk. And yeah, so ditch the formal. And again, it's a phrase that we use quite a lot in terms of our clients, just getting them to think sort of quite differently. In terms of performance against business drivers, if we're doing all of those above, if we're talking about the core pillars of your business, if you're defining them and you're using them on an ongoing basis within your business, when it comes to reviews or PDRs or performance appraisals or, God forbid, annual appraisals, which I hope most people will hopefully try and step away from, completely separate conversation, and won't get on that bus now. But ditch the formal, okay? Your performance reviews should be ongoing, on an always on approach, okay? So traditionally appraisals used to be, well, we'll run a whole year's worth of stuff and then we'll sit down at the end of the year and we'll concentrate on all of the bad stuff that happened over the last year, and we won't talk anything about what's going to happen about the future. Or the parameters would be out and you would end up talking about 80% about the past of what's gone and 20% about what's coming in the future. That part, again, transit rather than ditch it and chuck it in the bin, transition away from it. I always say this to people, people who are in the work environment pay mortgages, own houses, pay rent, drive cars. They're trusted enough to have a license and drive a car. Trust them enough to be able to do what they need to do within your business. If you've done the core pillars, you've done the work about what your business is, and you've talked about performance at interview stage, let them do what they do. If they go off track, sometimes you need to shuffle them back and go, remember what we said? You were tire pumper upper? That's fine. But an always on approach in terms of reviews, means it's much less time consuming and draining at the end of the year, but always allows you to be able to go back in and touch in with people on a 3-monthly basis and go, how are we doing against the core pillars? How are we doing against our business goals? How are we doing about your individual goals? So when it comes to performance from an engagement perspective, ditch the formal, start thinking about how we have an always on approach to those conversations. Because like I said, if they're trusted to drive a car and pay a mortgage, I'm pretty sure they could be trusted to do a job. But that's just my opinion. Okay, any questions on those? No. Okay. So there were a couple of questions that came through on these, Ro. I think I've definitely seen one. I'm not sure what it was. But in terms of reflections, so let's do reflections first. Anything in there which surprised anyone? It was a very short snippet. Nope. So any questions on this one, Ro, before we move on to the final little bit? You're on mute, by the way. Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no. There is, one question around motivation and how do we keep staff motivated?
okay, you keep staff motivated by asking them or using some form of tool to demonstrate what motivates them. So again, we use something called predictive index or predictive index from predictive advantage, which specifically measures motivations and behaviors of individuals. If by not using something like that, the easiest way to check what motivates your staff is to ask them what motivates them. And that's the difference, I think, is people have come away. There's an assumption that we know what motivates our staff, but actually to keep them motivated, you're not going to change their role to keep them motivated, to keep them within your business. But what you need to be able to do is, this is what we need to be able to deliver. Core pillars, business goals, your involvement in that is to keep them motivated around that. If they're motivated to be able to do that, they're going to be successful anyway. The point that they become unmotivated is where they're sometimes out of shape and they're not aligned to what they're being expected to deliver. So in order to keep them motivated, unless we're talking about, you know, the extrinsic reward package here, the intrinsic side about keeping staff motivated is going to be around making sure that you've got, you know, you're asking them about what, you know, what it is they want and aligning them to the business goals.
Cool. Okay. And you talked about interviewing earlier. There's a question here around the types of interview questions that trigger the really honest responses. So if you like, scratching beneath the surface, to those ones that talk a good talk.
Yeah. Yeah. First thing I would say, probably have a look at our recruitment interviewing course, because it probably might help. It's quite a big subject, but the profile perspective, when we look at sort of, you know, the motivation profile, is that those people who are really good at interviews and are really quite beguiling and tend to sort of, you know, wind you in, the ones that most people come out going, oh, they were lovely, they were so chatty, and the information, if you hear people go, oh, but the conversation flowed so well and it was such an easy conversation, that should be a slight red flag to you, because it means that they've sort of pulled you in. They are the ones, like I said, who will be the high extroversion, low risk individuals, low compliance individuals. And sometimes being high extroversion, low compliance will actually pull people into giving you words rather than actions. So if you're looking at interview questions, to answer the question, if you're looking at interview questions to trigger honest responses, then you need to be aligning that to the WIFM and the business goals. And once you've got those business goals, it's about pushing back on those business goals. It's about saying to them, you know, we're going to need to deliver X by this time next year, or we're going to be looking in this role about delivering this project to this client. You know, that's the business goals. And, you know, I'd like you to tell me what you're going to do in the first 3 months of that. And then I'd like to explain to me how that, you know, will increase the operational excellence line of our business, or how it will engage more people into the business. And then you're pulling in very specific stuff that relates to you and your business. All right.
That's it on the question front. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So again, one thing, pull out your piece of paper, everyone. One takeaway, one commitment. So in terms of just that part, we've talked about performance, and it was very quick. But in terms of performance, what was your one takeaway, and what were you one thing that you'll commit to doing as a result of that very quick conversation? All right, happy to move on. Anybody want to share them? Or... No. Everyone's got to it's 10 to 11. It's like the graveyard shift now, isn't it? Okay, so this one probably is the next highest one that we were looking at in terms of reward and recognition. So what we're talking about here is the benefits of an effective reward and recognition program that will engage employees, but also ensures the consistent growth of the business. Okay, so not sometimes like we've got in some of the government information at the moment, that we've got a lot of reward stuff going on, but are we actually matching it to the consistency and the growth of the business sector? Questionable, completely separate conversation. But it's about engaging employees from less traditional reward systems. Traditional reward systems are, we increase it by this every year, and it's against the rate of inflation, and da da da. What happens is where we're in the crisis situation now, that we now have those traditional reward systems based on inflation and based on current market is outgrowing sort of the, you know, what people can afford. And we're in a very, very difficult, complex situation at the moment, because the more we do in terms of just giving, the higher the risk will be that we can't get that back. So we're going to have, for years to come, we're going to be working at an overinflated wage situation, which is potentially very, very dangerous. And I can't be the only one from the government who is thinking about this, but that's just my thought. So in terms of sort of the fight to compete on wages at the moment is massive, and I'd be interested to hear sort of like from other people, but with the wage competition is going to be things that are knocking people out, especially with things in things like health and social care, especially within those more sort of technical sort of like type of roles. And like I said, should never be underestimated. Every day you switch news on, there's something about the financial crisis, and I'm pretty sure at 12:30 today, when the budget happens, we're probably going to see a whole load of stuff. Let's hope he concentrates on something around getting people back into work again, fingers crossed. So there's two questions which come from this, which is, again, really broken down in sort of two areas. What if we can't afford to pay the higher wages and compete? And if we do pay higher wages, what are we going to do about ensuring that productivity meets the increases? Because it's not just about chucking money at something, it's about getting that productivity side back as well. So bearing in mind economic and intervention at the moment, a couple of things on what we would suggest. So in answer to the question of what if you simply can't afford to pay higher wages? Well, there are a couple of things that you can do, and being, you know, most of you, I'm guessing, will be from around the sort of smaller business side, so the SME micro businesses. These absolutely should not be underestimated. You have a massive superpower that you can use and people don't pick up on. We just did a blog on it recently in terms of, you know, don't back away from this. Don't think that, you know, just because you can't afford the higher wages that you're gonna, you know, you will compete. Obviously you will. But it goes back to the storytelling, the values, the vision, the purpose, why people want to join you. Salary is salary. If you can't change that, change everything around it and make sure that you are in a competitive, you know, you're stepping up. Because you could go for a high wage, but actually what the individual wants is something very, very different. Look at the health and social care sector at the moment. There's a lot of emphasis on getting money into that sector and paying those higher wages. And I 100% back that. I think, you know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be paying them the higher wages, but actually if we ask them what they want, our feeling is that the stuff that we've done locally within the Southwest, health and social care, money and petrol vouchers is great. But actually what they want is they want to be able to do, they want the extrinsic side. They want to be able to do intrinsic. It's either intrinsic or extrinsic. They want to be able to do a really good job. They don't want to be tied down with new efficient systems. They don't want to be tied down with the fact of we've given you a new computer system, you have to log everything on there. When you join that sector, you join that sector because of what it does. The compassion, the helping my clients, the being involved with them, the spending time with them, the making sure they're okay. You can chuck a whole load of money at that, that's fine. But actually, fundamentally, some of the easiest things you can fix is around being able to offer them stuff which means something to them. Let me spend time with my clients. Don't rush me. Don't give me a computer system. All I want to do is very quickly be able to get them this into their homes as quickly as possible. So if you can't afford to pay those sort of like higher wages, here's a couple of really quick things that you could potentially think about. Ask what motivates your team. Not one of your team is different, or every one of your team is different. What I would ask Ro what motivates her as opposed to one of the other members of the team would be very, very different. So ask what motivates them. There are moments in time where you need certain things. There's moments in life where you need certain things. When you're young, you don't want to be hanging into a pension. You want your cash in your pocket because you want your beer tokens. Give them vouchers for their beer tokens to say thank you. When you're in young, early childcare, you know, it's not, you know, the amount we'll hopefully see some changes on this later. At that point in your life, you want the money to be able to afford to do what you want to be able to do and do, you know, give your family what you want. So you might see wage increases there. But if you can link that to productivity, there could be a higher amount paid at the end of 1 year than there could be, you know, from a salary perspective. So find out what motivates your team. If you're small enough, use it as your superpower. Sit down and talk to them about what motivates them, and then use those intrinsic rewards to be able to do that. Say thank you. Never underestimate the power of a thank you. You'll be amazed. And sometimes, again, understand your people. High extroverts want to be thanked publicly with lots of like bravado and lots of, you know, popping of corks and slapping on backs and very visual. Introverts need quiet thank yous. They need much more around, I'd just like to, you know, say thank you for what you did. So it's much quieter. So, you know, one size doesn't fit all on the thank yous. Think about the type of person that you're looking at. Voucher schemes, very tax efficient at the moment. You know, from a food perspective, from a clothing perspective, you know, all sorts of things. A £50 voucher to somebody at the moment is worth more in terms of that voucher than it would be in terms of cash in the pocket. So think about how you might be able to use. There's a load of really good ones. We use Prezi quite a lot, but there's probably 100 other different ones that you can use. But look at voucher schemes to say thank you. Look at voucher schemes to reward good, like, performance that matches your business goals. Other things that you can do, holding work days focused on finances and savings, bring in experts in terms of debt counselling service, using working from home to save on petrol, a couple of things that have been talked about a lot over the last year or so. So if you can't afford to pay the higher wages, don't let that stop you. Like I said, pay the wage that the business can afford, and then wrap around a whole load of other sexy stuff around it that makes people want to go, thank you very much, I'll have a bit of that. And then in terms of recognition, performance-related bonuses. So some of these do cost the business, but it relates back to the success of the business. So, and again, we're not talking about, you know, we advise clients, again, just giving out pay rises, because it's not sustainable. We will cap out at a point that we'll never be able to get back from. So pay rises should be given, but they should be given in line with business and productivity increases, and they should share in the reward of the business. And if the business is doing well and they're aligned and it's successful, they should, quite frankly, have a share in the business. So here's a couple of things that we've looked at before. Performance-related bonuses based on the business success. So if we know of those 4 core pillars, where our success is going to come from. So we've done particularly well on finances. Our operational excellence has saved us this much money because we've had suggestions from, you know, people about how we improve things. If we've had particularly good, you know, behavior in terms of, or output in terms of the people line, or we've had massive significant increase in products, customers or MPD, so products and success. The performance related bonuses linked to those are what we call the 4 core pillars. The performance related bonuses linked to those will instill the right set of behaviors for you to take your business forward. Okay, so they're directly linked. So rather than just going, again, straight wage, unsustainable, go with wage increase and then a wraparound of things around it. So performance related bonuses based on business success. Share option schemes, if you're in a position of doing EMI schemes, incredible way, and increases retention of your core technical skills within your business. EMI schemes or share option schemes increase retention and minimize flight risk of your key core performers. So the way in which we use them is it will talk about EMI schemes with those that are perhaps more from a sort of senior level or technical competence. So software uses this a lot when you want to try and retain key skills within your business. Things like share options, EMI schemes will minimize flight risk within your business. So there will be a cost associated with it, but you will save in terms of from a retention perspective. Training and development, again, hugely under-resourced or underutilized. Training and development, if you apportion, so take that overall cost that you're spending in terms of ads and agencies, okay? Hive off 50% of that, use that for some of the other things that we've been discussing. Of that, some of that remainder, look at things like training and development budgets. If you said to somebody, I'm going to give you £1,000 this year to spend on you developing yourself, and I want you to choose one thing that you want to develop in, so personal to you, and I want you to choose one thing from the business perspective that you want to develop, and I'm going to give you £1,000 to spend on that. It will increase employee engagement, although there is a cost associated with it. It will increase employee engagement, and it will develop people into skills that they think suit your business. Now, if they then say to you, I want to go and be a brain surgeon, clearly, unless you're in the brain surgery market, that's not going to work. But if you're saying to them, here's your budget, go and spend one amount on you, there's engagement, there's a link to your business now. And one thing for the business, okay, well, I'm going to go and increase my technical skill in this. If you're having those always on reviews with them, what will then happen is they will then tie that back into what you're looking for. So never underestimate giving people as part of the package. You have your salary. We have all these beautiful wraparounds in terms of vouchers and thank yous and, you know, EMI schemes and everything else. We also have a training and development budget. We did this with a tax consultancy, a niche tax consultancy, and we gave them a £2,000 training budget. And we did think originally they were going to go off and spend it on something really random, but they didn't. They all went for something that increased their technical capability, and loyalty to the business was like, this is amazing. Rather than me telling you how I want you to train in this, we're giving them the responsibility, and 9 times out of 10, they will let you down. Private healthcare. Again, there is a cost associated to this, but the reward on this is obviously healthy staff, higher productivity, and especially in today's market. You know, we were talking about something last week about signposting people out when you're not, you know, you don't feel competent or confident to be able to talk about certain things with employees. Employee assistance programs that are linked to private healthcare at the moment, you have a signpost immediately that if somebody is struggling, you can say to them, I'm not technically competent to help you with this, but actually if you just go and have a look at our EAP scheme, which is the employee assistance program, then you can call this number and you can chat to somebody who is technically able to help you with that issue. So again, increases engagement, higher productivity, healthier staff. Okay, I'm gonna shush now, because again, I feel like I've been talking too much. So Ro, do you want to just round up with things, or because I think we're just over, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we're just over. We're just creeping up to 11, aren't we? So does anyone have any questions on anything that Karen's just gone through there? One thing I will say actually on something that we do, so I work for Karen, but on a Tuesday morning, she lets me nip out for a run, which is great because my children aren't here; they're all at school. But that for me is amazing, and it's a tiny little thing, but it's like that hour that I get where I can go off, where probably pre-COVID I should have been sat behind my laptop. So it is little things like that that really do, it's not all about the money all the time. So just bear that in mind. Does anyone have any questions, or are we good to say our thank yous and goodbyes?
Just one question, Rowena. I was wondering about the leader profile. I believe Karen was talking about. Is that something that's coming through an email, or was it part of this?
I think Karen's going to come on to that in a second. Now.
It's almost like we rehearsed this for me.
I know, that's it. It's like we prep for this part.
He's been here the whole time waiting for this.
Right. So yes, first of all, can I three thank yous actually. First, thank you to the Somerset Unitary Authorities, the Sedgemoor, Mendip, Somerset County Council, Somerset and Western and South District Council for allowing us to be able to do this and funding it. We'd like to pass on our thanks to them. Thank you to all of you. I know you were all incredibly busy people, so thank you for your time. I'm hoping that you found it useful, and as per our original one, that you have 2 things that you can take away with you at least that you can start working on now. Commitment and takeaway, keep that with you, because now you've committed to it. If I had to phone you in a week and ask you, I'd be interested to know what you said yes to. And finally, thank you to Rowena for being my co-pilot today. I can't do it without you. So leader profile, the link is on the screen now. As we can't get it into the chat box, Ro, I think we should have emails for attendees. So Samir will send it out to you so you can do it. If there's any technical, if you can't get into it or it links back into something else, just email hello@rowanhr.com and we'll go in the back end and send you a direct link. Okay. So yeah, leader profile link will be sent to you, will be emailed to you, and once we've done it, there is a report that we can send to you, so we'll probably book some time with you just for a quick feedback session, and then we'll send you the report through. The one-to-ones, so again, as part of the funding from the councils, we have the option now, or you actually have the option now, that if you want to continue this conversation, we've said I think on the thing it's advertised as 2 hours worth of HR support. when we define HR, it can be anything. So anything that we've discussed here in terms of reward, in terms of recruitment, in terms of advertising. So if you want to continue this conversation, there's 2 hours that you are all welcome to sign up for. I think a couple of people have already signed up already, haven't they? I think we've got, what, 4 spaces left, I think, am I right? So if you are looking, then make sure you get signed up ASAP. So again, email rowena@rowanhr.com or the hello@rowanhr.com. And we'll make sure that we get you booked in for a further 2 hours. And it can be an hour, break, action, and then another hour. So we're not going to sit and talk to you for 2 hours, because I get really bored of my own voice, and you probably get bored of it as well. So leader profile link in there, book your one-to-ones for your HR recruitment support, or to talk more. Use the Rowena@ or hello@rowanhr.com link. And then below that, there are a number of things that that you can just go check out. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. So that's this bit here. Okay. So on our online resources, there's podcasts on there. There's our Shed Talks, which people tend to love. So go check out the videos that are on there. They're all free. You can just download them. You can do it while you're going for a walk or a run. Our workshops are around recruitment, managing difficult conversations, our emerging leaders program, and our grow program. How to write an effective job advert. We've got some information in terms of using PI to ensure you make effective recruitment decisions.
Can I just say, right, Karen, it's
Yep.
just quite, with the abbreviations, it's quite amazing, because PI in the education sector is physical intervention.
Oh, okay, well, it's
Definitely
not
what
that.
it is.
No, I just wanted to clarify that. I didn't need to go out dragging people into the door. That's what I just.
Yeah, there's no physical intervention involved in what we're talking about with PI. Can I just be really clear about that? So PI for us is predictive advantage, or predictive index is the tool, predictive advantage is the business. We are the Southwest analysts for that tool, and we use it an awful lot in the business. I would talk for equally another 2 hours, so I'm not going to. But if you want to find out more about how PI can ensure effective recruitment decisions, predictive index can ensure effective recruitment decisions, can help you as a leader, and can help you build a team that is driven towards your strategy, then contact us and we'll very happily show you how it works. Use our connections, never underestimated. We've, over the sort of 12-15 years of Rowan Consulting, there's a lot of connections that we've got. If you want to use them or access them, please do, because for us to connect people up, like I said, overarching mission, if everyone who comes into contact with us benefits, then we've done our job. And then we've got the Rowan Doc Hub. Some of you actually know about this, some of you don't, but there are a whole load of things in terms of recruitment and onboarding inducted employees. If you want to find out more, contact us at hello@rowanhr.com. And then that's me done.
Well done, Karen.
Thank you. I hope you did find it useful. Again, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And yeah, I hope it was really useful.
Thank you very much, Karen and Rowena. Very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Samir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've got loads of
you.
notes and a good bunch of actions to get on with.
Yeah,
so
same.
thank
So
you.
if I phone you then, John, you're going to be the one that's got the biggest list, because you had last week's list to do as well.
I do like using paper. But what I'm not so good at is going back to reviewing that bit of paper. So my next step is to review the bit of paper and turn it into some actions. I'm particularly interested in the hiring my first employee thing. I did have a quick look on the Rowan HR website to see if I could spot that, but I couldn't spot it on the resources section. So I thought I'd
That's fine. We'll send it to you. It's I think it's under 4 things to consider.
Okay, great.
So yeah, if it's not on there, then just drop me a line and I'll send it straight through to you.
Thank you very much.
All right. If anybody wants to stay online to chat about the 2-hour extra support that you can get, then stay on the line and we'll have a quick chat with you about it now if you'd like to. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because that's probably, ta-da, look at that, I got it right.
Thank you, guys. I need to leave, but I'll